Anson & Co. stream entrance in existence. Welcome to we are doing a end of the year live stream talking about the year end recap for all of the new cameras. It's been a busy year, y'all. It's been a busy year for cameras. It's been a busy year for the channel. Oddly enough, it's not been busy because like I'm making more content. I decided this year to go full-time freelance. And so yeah, it was kind of like a Verizon hold music. I used to have a really cool like intro, but apparently StreamYard was like, you got to pay for this now. And so there is that. If you're curious, I am currently streaming on the Blackmagic Pixis, for better or for worse. I think I'm in focus because the other thing that I'm super pumped on is earlier this year when I went full-time freelance, I posted this on Instagram earlier today. But when I went full-time freelance, I sold my full Sigma Cine set. Again, better for worse, I sold the set. I didn't have a ton of cameras that I owned at the time that I could reliably use for business. And so I sold the set to kind of fund an S1R Mark II. There was a BF in there somewhere. And then now the Pixis 6K, which honestly, I've had like 4 or 5 shoots with this thing already, and it's worth its weight in gold and definitely worth every penny. So yeah, we're hanging out. Neil, happy holidays. Cheers to anyone that partakes in a beverage or two. So we're hanging out. If anybody is a Blackmagic owner and has any idea other than OBS, the easy answer is OBS. I need to look at OBS. Any idea on how to add a LUT to the USB-C feed for the kind of webcam mode? If you know how to do that, let me know in the chat or the comments if you're watching later. No, huge lifesaver. Right now, I'm just doing like the extended video or the 709 view. I played around with like the tent and the white balance just to kind of like get it to where it's like a standard 709. Please, God, let me remember to change this before I actually start filming. So cheers from Barcelona. Awesome. Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K owner here, but I cannot help with your question. That's fair. I don't think there's a solution other than OBS. Neil says very cool. The Growing Pro. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Bropic looks great. I don't know why I said with that much enthusiasm, but I do miss Sigma. Regardless of looking forward to what you bring with the Pixis. Still have the Sigma. Still, actually, I need to send mine off. I said this in my Sigma getting or the FP being discontinued video that I need to send mine off because the USB-C port is basically not recognizing SSDs anymore. And so I need to get that taken care of. Ask Cinechamp. He knows all things Blackmagic. I need to check him out. Need to pick his brain. A Sigma FP forever. Sigma FP forever. Sitting right up here. And honestly, if I hadn't picked up the Pixis, it probably would have still been in my workflow because we have a client that is a sports bar, or they're an indoor golf kind of sports bar. They're a local business. We have them on retainer. I don't know if they're going to resign, but we just covered their kind of like indoor majors for kind of like their end of the year tournament. And dude, there's so much mixed lighting in that thing. So between you have the bar lighting, which is generally like a nasty tungsten lighting, you have overhead lighting, which sometimes can be tungsten, sometimes can be daylight, and then you have because it's an indoor golf facility, they have their projections which cast like a weird green tint to everything. It just really benefited having 12-bit raw on their most recent shoot. And so, yeah, if I hadn't picked up the Pixis, I would have definitely tried to get the FP back up and running, because while the S1R Mark II does do RAW, it's like a 1.4 crop, and so like I'm putting out a video maybe this week, maybe next week, of why I bought the Pixis. And one reason is full frame RAW. The S1 II, this is kind of where I think the S1 II shines over the S1R2. It doesn't, I think it has a 1.1 crop in ProRes RAW, whereas the S1R is like a 1.4 APS-C crop, because they do more pixel to pixel. Excited for this FPQ. Do you think it's going to come to fruition? I've seen like the little, like, I think it's fake. I think it's fake. I hope they do something with the FP line. I really do. I really wish that they would team up with like Blackmagic, or for that matter, team up with like Lumix and put out, or even Leica, geez, and put out a box style FP. I know that I don't think they're going to do it. It just, I honestly, I said this when I did my BF like first reactions video, that I didn't see the BF coming. And so, you know, they've been very close to the chest this year. Usually we'll get like a 2-week like press release for us, you know, and maybe even the gear to test out so we can put out an embargo video. They haven't been doing that much this year. Only really the bigger channels are getting that. And they've been doing them in like batches. And so I still have good communication with them. I actually just hit up my rep that works there. Hopefully getting some of the new Cine lenses in. And so hopefully I'll see that. But yeah, it's been weird. It's been a weird year for reviewing Sigma stuff. Educate me about this new Sigma FP. I think it's I think it's fake. I think it's a fake rendering. But basically, I think what the rendering is like an FP that has a Foveon sensor, basically, which would be killer. I mean, it's like the full frame Foveon that they've been talking about for years and have had to go back to the drawing board several times on. And so we'll see. We'll see if it happens. Yes, you hit me. Hit me on the dream cam, on my dream cam on the nail. I can't read today. I'm also so very far away from my laptop. I don't know why. An FP box style, dude, with Leica would be insane, but even with Lumix, I think it would be truly sick. You know, it's funny. Leica Log was an interesting step for Sigma with the BF. It makes me think that it's possible that they would team up and, you know, maybe we'll get some like a prestige in a cinema camera. Yes. So cameras of 2025. 2025 has been a big year. Freelance, full time. Just wrapped up my deliverables for 2025, taking the rest of the year off. Hitting it hard back in January. So fun times, but obviously needed to change some things up. So that's why I sold my Sigma Cine set, but now I repurchased the Sigma 50mm T1.5. That's why I'm filming on it right now. I missed this lens so much. I bought the EF version versus the PL version, and I technically bought it from Japan, and it did not come like with like broken, which I was surprised because it was not very well wrapped, but these things are tanks. So there is that. So I'm on the Pixis 6K with the 50mm f1 or T1.5 from Sigma, and just in a standard color profile, or the standard Rec 709. Let me get to this, and then we'll start the kind of topic here. So as an S1R owner, S1R2 owner, do you think it's worth the upgrade to the from the original S1R, just focusing on photography as a portrait sports photographer? I'm on the verge of upgrading, but man, I love my S1R. S1R is sick. S1R is a great camera. It is a great camera. I do think that there are a lot of good autofocus tracking capabilities that come with the 2, um, that I don't think you're gonna see that type of performance on the R. A lot of the that would be a big thing for me is autofocus. Even in photography, I think it's gotten it's better. Now I've never personally owned the original S1R, but I did own the S1H. And even the S1H to like the autofocus system of the newer cameras is so good. The only thing that would bug me with the R2 is the body. So this is where, and this is a good segue into cameras of 2025, because the S1R Mark II was released very early in 2025, and S1 Mark II also has the same body. S1 2E also has the same body. The biggest gripe I have with these new bodies is how small they are, and I think, and I know Sigma did, or not Sigma, but Lumix did a bunch of market research on what people wanted to see. And with these cameras, people wanted a smaller form factor, maybe smaller than what they had before. And but in my opinion, it comes at a cost of feeling professional. I would say if you're going to upgrade to the R2, I would definitely get the grip with it. That will make, if you ever use like flash with your photography, it makes it holding that camera with a flash on top so much more comfortable. And it just makes the whole ergonomics way better having the grip. And so I definitely would use the grip or buy the battery grip with it. But like I said, I think you do have a lot of good features. I think there's now like the pre-burst. I'm really bad at photo specs. And so, you can do the pre-burst option where, you can take photos and it actually goes kind of retroactively. I don't actually know how pre-burst works, but pre-burst. And then, yeah, just autofocus performance. My little bit of, I know enough of my photography settings to like get the job done. I couldn't tell you a damn thing about like pro settings. So there is that. Um, Proud of you, brother. Great steps. Absolutely, dude. It's been a crazy year. I've been super pumped on it. I'm happy to. We actually just signed for a new office, and so hopefully I'll be doing these more in that office because we're also going to have a very small, like 1 to 2 person max podcast studio set up in the corner of the office. And so our clients that want to do podcasts, they can come in and do podcast. If we want to do a podcast, we can do that. And then obviously if I want to stream, that's there. Evening, everyone. Evening. Yes, S1R is a tank with the LCD display on top. S1R2 felt more like an S5, but a better autofocus would be big for me. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, I would say, I mean, the big thing with the new models of cameras is the autofocus. Like, it's really hard to go back. This is the one thing I love cinema lenses, and I love this lens, but it's really hard to go back to pulling focus manually when you have such good autofocus in these Lumix cameras. The only reason why I ventured back into a cinema lens is because I found myself, even with my S1R2, just going with cinema lenses. I love the experience of pulling focus with cinema lenses, whether it's using LiDAR and letting the LiDAR detection, pull focus for me, or just pulling it manually, even just by hand. I love the experience so much more. I bought the Sigma 18-35 for all of like 2 seconds because I was like, I can, use this whenever I use crop mode in some of my cameras. And just I had to send it back because the manual focusing experience is not great. And if I'm going to use that camera in some of the like lower resolutions on the Pixis, because that does get windowed, it does crop in a little bit. I want a good, decent focus throw. And that's the only reason I sent the 18-35 back, because I was like, this focus throw is terrible. I didn't want to venture into a Cine 18-35, so I went into Prime. And honestly, this is a Prime I can pretty much do everything I need to with. And so that is nice. The Lumix S1H kitted out is huge, but very cool. Very much so. It is, dude, that is such a beefy camera. Cine lenses and vintage. I thought about going back to vintage, but I went this route instead. Vintage for me, I have too many. We service too many small businesses. If I were doing weddings or things like that, vintage would be cool. But I've done one wedding this year, and the rest have been like small business. And so I need something clean and a little bit more modern. And that's where the Sigmas come in. I was using all my Sigma photo glass. This is my one treat to myself to bring back the Cine Prime. So S1R Mark II, S1 Mark II. Those are releases for 2025. I think honestly, I think Lumix. Okay, so like looking at this whole year, I think Lumix did a really good job of setting the bar in some ways. Now, they did get crippled a little bit with the overheating, but with the firmware that just came out a couple months ago or a month ago, that is seemingly solved for a majority of users, including myself with an S1R Mark II. And so, really, they came out swinging, almost like spoiled a whole bunch of people on cameras for 2025. If you look at like the Sony, and we may be just going around everywhere, I don't have really any structure, but if you look at the Sony A7 IV, yes, the A7 IV, a lot of people were pissed because it didn't have open gate, didn't have anything above 4K. Like even just those two specs alone made a whole lot of people angry because they felt like Sony is behind. And we can get into like quality of 4K, quality, not needing open gate. I'll be the first to say, like, I use Lumix and Blackmagic that both have open gate, and I don't always use open gate. Like, I prefer sometimes, especially for a camera that has one frame guide. If I know I'm delivering in 16:9, I'll use the one frame guide option that I have. Now with my Lumix cameras, that's not a huge deal because there's multiple frame guides, but I'll use the frame guide that I have available to compose for 9:16. And basically that's how I compose for both my shots. Again, we may just have a little bit of headroom in the 16:9 image so that I can deliver in 9:16. So like, I don't get me wrong, like I look at the A7 V, and even for that matter, was the FX2 this year or was that last year? But even we'll say it's a part, and it's just like, what's Sony doing? I hate being that person. I think it's almost become not cool to crap on Sony because like everyone does that doesn't own a Sony, because let's be real, we're probably in some ways all jealous of what the Sony can do. I saw somebody at my office the other day with an FX3, and even that camera, like I don't really love that camera, but I see it and I'm like, that's a really cool camera. Like I can't deny that. It may have been an FX30, I don't know. But I'm like, that's a really cool camera. But and someone even said I did a post this past week. I was like, hey, my last couple of videos of the year is going to be, some of them are going to be live streams. What do you guys want to talk about? And someone commented, and if you're in the stream, I don't remember the username of who did, but if you're in the stream, welcome. Thank you for the suggestion. But the concept that 6K is now the standard. It was just a couple years ago that everybody's like, oh, we're still filming in 1080. But now we're filming in 4K. Sometimes we're filming in 6K. Sometimes it's 8K. And for me, 6K is kind of like where I start, simply because I like the ability to reframe. I don't like, I just had a reel. I just did a couple reels for a client where I didn't track manually. Like I didn't follow her while she was talking. I used the zoom. I did a lazy man's tracking and used my zoom on my 24-70 to kind of just like open up the frame as she walked closer. But even looking at that, I think what I'm going to do next time is put on a LiDAR with my 51 T15 and just have her walk towards me, let the LiDAR track her, and just do all that in post because I'm doing it in 6K open gate. And so that's where like OpenGate for me is nice. And for my buddy Matthew Dangu, like he delivers everything as a standard for both vertical and horizontal. I think that's his business, his whole business model is like 4-3. And so for people and filmmakers like that, it's a standard. That's what you need. But does everybody need it? I hate to say this, but I kind of side with Gerald with this whole like it's not needed because I don't know if it's needed. I mean, like the BF, I would do a whole bunch of stuff on the BF, and it doesn't have OpenGate. It has 6K, but it doesn't have OpenGate. And so I think it's just like what you're doing. But that's just cameras, right? That's cameras in general. So I went off on a little tangent. S1R Mark II, S1 Mark II kind of for me set the tone for the year for the cameras to beat. There is one in here that I want to talk about and I have opinions about that I think definitely dethroned them as far as like what people are talking about. And I'm not sure why. I know why, but I'm not sure why at the same time. But we'll get there, right? So we have the S1R, S1 II, S1R Mark II. The my thumbnail is the BF. Let's talk about the BF. Sigma BF. I love this camera. I would lie to say I don't pick it up. I would be lying if I said I pick it up all the time. I don't. It is a great conversation starter. That's kind of my go home with the BF. It's a great conversation starter. It's a great kind of showpiece. If I had a very limited budget, I didn't run a YouTube channel where I wanted to talk about this camera on my channel, would I buy this camera? That's a hard one. That's a hard one because I do think that there is a little bit of the excess mentality with the BF, because it is so stripped down. It depends. I think it depends. Like if photography, filmmaking is a hobby for you, I think the BF can fit in there nicely because it gives you that kind of approach to simplicity, and I do appreciate that. But I do think it lacks features that me as the business side of things, business 100%, it lacks features that I need to run my business. And honestly, like, is it that fun where I'm choosing it over other cameras just for going out? I think if I'm doing a walk around, if I just want an accessory camera, an everyday camera, this is probably my camera, especially with the TT Artisan, what I have in the thumbnail, the TT Artisan F2 or 40 millimeter F2. That's a great walk around kit. Autofocus, low light, great little kit. I haven't used it in a while because one, I've been working. So anytime I touch a camera, I'm working. You tend to go out less for leisure when that is the case. But I don't know. That's one thing where like it's hard to say like if I had very limited budget. I actually bought two and I sold one because I was like, I don't need this. And I need to get the Pixis. I want to get the Pixis. And so I sold the silver. I have the black still, which also was a surprise to me. I thought the silver was going to be the cooler one, just because it pops. I actually really like the black a lot better. So the BF was cool, but I'll be honest, I pick up the FP and I'm like, God, I really miss this camera. And I really wish there were some things they put in the BF that the FP had, because the FP is one of those cameras. Like, I have toyed with the idea of doing some sort of tattoo that commemorates the FP because I'm weird. But like that camera means a lot to me because not just the fact that it can do what it can do, but also it's a camera that drives emotion. And because it can do what it can do in such a small form factor, and what you can create is looks very human, looks very organic. And like I know I'm talking about a camera and probably gushing on about a camera, and that always in some way feels weird. right? But that camera means a lot to me. It's a camera that my channel grew on. It's a camera that my channel is probably known for a lot of people, and it just captures something special. I haven't found that thing in the BF, and I'm hoping that Sigma puts something out this year in a firmware, that helps that connection piece for me. So I haven't ditched it. I'm hoping that Sigma kinda takes it to another level and puts something in it that just makes that just stand out. We'll see. We'll see. I don't I if we're saying, like, would you recommend it right now? I don't know. I don't think I would, unless you just have the money and wanna I mean, I like it as a small business content creator and filmmaker because people ask me and approach me about the camera, and I get to talk to them about my passion and what I do for a living. So, it's a cool camera. I love the camera. But again, if you had limited budget, I'm not sure if I would. Um, Sony FX2 was this year. Okay, cool. Agreed. Sigma makes some conversation starters camera for sure. I love my DP2 Quattro, though I don't grab it often. Not an easy pick for sure. This is, I mean, that's what, and it's funny when I think it was my original um first reactions video for the BF. I said that like the FP was the normal looking camera of all the ones they've made in recent years, if ever. Well, no more recent years. I do have a film camera that very much looks like the Canon film camera that's right below it, but the Sigma looks very similar to it. So, we'll say recent years. They do make some interesting looking conversation starter cameras, and so that is where it is. The FP was the normal looking one, but I do appreciate Sigma for their willingness to be a little bit different. And that's where I'm also very hopeful for the BF because they Sigma with especially with cameras kind of hang on. My wife heard some commotion outside, making sure everybody's good. I think we're good. But that's where I'm really, like I said, I really want Sigma to kind of put that feature out there that is just it draws in that connection. Maybe it's a new color profile. Maybe it's a some sort of raw externally, whatever. So it is. I think it has potential. I think time will tell. Time will tell. So what other releases do we have? I actually considered I went to Chat GPT and actually failed me very miserably. Because I was like, you don't even have Sony's on here. So we've got the Sigma BF, we've got the Lumix S1 II and S1R Mark II. Um, you know what? Before we talk about the other one, there is the Canon R6 Mark III, and even the was it the C50? Um, honestly, let me see. I think I can do. No. C50 and R6 Mark III. Let's pull these up. I'm gonna actually give you guys some like some visual aid rather than look at my algo log the whole time. Give me 1 second. Canon C50. Okay. Allow. Allow. All right, let's try doing this. Let's share screen. Share screen. Allow. C50. Boom. All right, let me go back to StreamYard. And we're going to do this number. Nope. There we go. All right, so Canon C50. This so C50, I'll kind of clump in C50 and R6 Mark III kind of together. C51, first and foremost, kind of surprised me. I mean, it didn't surprise me, but it surprised me. And my first knee jerk response is, damn, Sony's trying to be Sony, or damn, Canon's trying to be Sony. With the FX3, and for that matter, like I have feelings about when we're comparing everything against the FX3, which is what, 4-ish years old, somewhere around there. Like, what does that say about the camera industry and everybody else's technology? I mean, it says that maybe the FX3 was well ahead of its time. But now we're seeing cameras catch up, and now we're like, oh, the FX3 killer. Congratulations. We killed a camera that's 4 years old. That's technology. And I'm kind of surprised it took us that long. And so yes, that was my first take on the C50, but I do appreciate what it does offer. And so let's look at some of the specs. So we have the, I should go to B&H for the specs. Canon's going to give me all of like the nerdy specs that aren't just like bullet points. All right, so we got 7K full frame, CMOS sensor, dual base ISO, 7K open gate. That's where Canon surprised me. Canon brought in open gate. If Canon's bringing in open gate and Sony's not, that's where I'm also like, okay, I'm not used to this, that Sony's behind on some of these video features. And so that was an interesting thing here. I do like the body. I think the body is dope. It's a little chunky. I like the ports are kind of like all like it's a chunky little camera, and I kind of dig it. But then you talk about something like the R6 Mark III. Let me pull that up. R6 III. And the price tag on C50 is kind of nice too. I mean, it's $4,000, but still, like, it's a full-fledged mirrorless body cinema camera, which I have feelings about. We'll talk about it because I think the one that I have been wanting to talk about in the channel but not know how, I will get to that in just a minute. We'll get to it. R6 Mark III. So R6 Mark III, you have the 32 megapixel sensor, 7K, 60 frames, internal RAW. Like, what is this spec? Like, I love how we went from like not being able to put RAW in cameras. And I know Canon's always had like their RAW light. But like, the amount of cameras that have RAW, and this again goes back to the A7 IV, where it's like, why doesn't the A7 IV have RAW at all? Like it's just, what will happen? So, okay, we have Lumix, which has ProRes RAW, both the S1R Mark II and the S1 Mark II. Now, the S1 Mark II, whenever Lumix makes a predecessor maybe to the S1H, which I do think the S1 II is a predecessor or a successor to it, rather. I do think it's technically a successor, but let's say they put out something that is the true successor to the S1H. Then the S1 II is going to kind of be the base of the S1 series. And that's kind of what the A7 V is, because you have the A7, whatever, 4, 5, 3, whatever. Then you have the A7S, and then you have the A7R. And that's kind of how I've always seen kind of like the Sony to Lumix ecosystem, is the S1 is that kind of base flagship camera, prosumer kind of range. You're not a sports photographer or something like that, but it's that prosumer kind of like high-end base camera. And so that's what the A7 you just normal number is. And the same thing with like the S1. The S1 has ProRes RAW. Why doesn't the A7 V have any RAW at all? Like, no high resolution, no, and yes, you maybe have faster readout speed and things like that. But okay, we're just gonna go into it. You have cameras like the Nikon ZR. Yes, I said the Nikon ZR. You know, Ed Prosser said that that's the most, or his title was like the most overhyped camera of the year, and I do think it's overhyped. I don't get it. And I think, and I'll talk to you maybe in a little bit of why I can't get on board with the ZR. But when you have a camera like the Nikon ZR, that for all intents and purposes, I have no idea how this camera does not melt. Just like the chassis doesn't melt because you have red raw, you have 32-bit float, you have all these things, and yet Sony can't put a flavor of raw in their camera, can't do open gate, can't. It's just like that's where I think everybody's frustration with the A7 V release was, and that's where I think that uh, everyone else in the playing field is like, what are you doing? So okay, let's go into the Nikon ZR. Yeah, 6K raw, and yes, exactly, 6K raw and a $2,200 USD body. How do you literally not get on board with that? Oh, that's a comment to me. Fair. Um, Nikon ZR is going to be a used camera legend. Okay, so here's why I have a hard time getting on board with the Nikon ZR. Let me rephrase that. I like what it's doing, right? I like what it offers. Part of me wants one. Part of me wants one. And there's a few reasons why I didn't go down this road. And honestly, the biggest reason is because I'm an FP owner, or have been an FP owner for the past 4 years, 5 years, going on 6 years. Like, I don't remember when I bought the camera. The reason I cannot get on board with the ZR is because I've owned the FP. And as a YouTube personality, as somebody that has made consistent content about the FP, let me tell you how much of finagling, how much working with the quirkiness of that camera like was exhausting. The day the BF was announced, and I kid you not, the day the BF was announced, I kind of breathed a breath of relief, because I'm like, okay, whew, I can take a step back for a minute and stop figuring out how to make this FP functional in every situation that I need it to be. I'm not ready to do that with another camera. And that's kind of, and if that makes sense at all, I hope that makes sense. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. It is quirky. It's quirky. Everybody I've talked to says it's quirky. And I do need to try it because I want to see how quirky it is itself. Things like it's hard to, like, there's so many things. I think I have PTSD from the FP in some sense, because like I hear people say, well, you can't expose for red raw accurately in camera because it doesn't have correct exposure tools. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the FP. The FP struggled from day one trying to show you what you were actually getting with Cinema DNG. And it wasn't until I think EL Zone that they actually got those tools correct. And that's I think that's the last firmware update for the FP. So you're talking like 3 to 4 years where we had to either buy an Atomos Ninja and convert our footage to like some like version of Vlog and use a LUT on top of that. Or you had to, I think technically the spot meter worked. But like false color, I think, was off. Zebras were definitely off. And so it just became a headache for some people to expose for the FP's raw. And at the end of the day, for me, like I wasn't professional full time at that point. So like for me, it was just like, cool. If I mess up my exposure, it's raw. I'll just fix it in post. But if I had to show someone what that looked like on set and a client, I that would, I actually had a client this past one of my most recent shoots where they were like, "Oh, we saw some of the frames from behind. They look really good, and we're really excited." Dude, if they had seen that from the FP, it would have been bad. So there's stuff like that. There's stuff like, the SD card being in the battery port. There's only one SD card. This is not in my opinion, this is not a pro camera. This is a prosumer mirrorless style cinema camera. And again, I need to get my hands on it. I need to use it. I'm very slow to do so because one, I have no Z mount lenses. And that's where I also kind of like, I don't feel like I have skin in the game because I'm in the L mount ecosystem. And so this is not my ecosystem, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to build another ecosystem. Now, I do have now, again, a PF, not EF or PL, but PF. I do now have an EF Sigma, and I have a couple PLs that I could probably adapt. But it's just like there's other things I can do with $2,100. Like, yes, it's not a ton of money in the grand scheme of cameras, especially for a red code raw camera. Um, but I don't want. I PTSD from the Sigma FP. I love the camera, but I have some PTSD from it, and that's the biggest reason why I have not gone into the ZR. That makes a lot more sense for sure. Never be the beta tester, as they say, for sure. It definitely like makes you jaded at times. Like, I remember I've heard comments from people that whether they've watched stuff on my channel, we've just chatted in person, where they were like, dude, the stuff that you're doing with the FP, like, I don't know how you're doing this. And like, it wasn't not for trying. Like, I worked my ass off to get that image where I actually wanted it. And I'll be honest, there were some times where like even like a month ago, I finally was looking at old footage and graded it to where I was like, "Oh, oh, that's where I actually wanted that image." Like, and those things take time. Those things you always grow as a colorist or a cinematographer or something like that. But oh, wow, why is it not? I don't want to open it in a new tab. Oh, you guys are looking at, okay, let me share a different screen here. Let's share the actual B&H of the ZR. There we go. But I do agree with Neil. I think the ZR is on its way already to be a cult classic. People are going to love it. People already do love it. And it's killer for what it is right now. I think, this is going into one reason why I bought the Pixis, and probably one of the things I'll mention in my why I bought Pixis. So it's, I'm tired of Frankensteining a rig. I did it so like I did it so much with the FP. I've done it with my Lumix cameras. I'm just at a point where, especially now that I'm going on set with my camera, I'm tired of going in with a Frankenstein rig. I'm tired of like cables everywhere. I want a clean experience. And so having an actual cinema camera that, this is not like other Blackmagic cameras that I've used in the past where it's basically mirrorless style and I have to still Frankenstein everything. The way that I have my Tilta rig right now, like I have I'm looking at it right now. I have a single cable running the whole thing because it's just running my Pixis monitor. But my V mount, well, okay, I lied. I'm actually plugged into the mains. Okay, so there's two cables. Oh, three if you count the. I'm a liar. I'm a dirty liar because I have my USB-C going, whatever. But when I'm on set, I have one cable running my Pixis monitor because The Tilta battery, the V-mount battery that plugs right into the back of the camera. I put a V-mount battery on, no cables. My side handle, no cables. It literally the only cable on here is for the Pixis monitor. And to not have to deal with, like, hiding cables, Frankensteining something, like, it's just it helps me just feel more organized and more ready for what is about to happen on set, or at the location I'm filming. And so that's some of my reasons. I think both the ZR and the S9 will be used camera legends. I do agree. I think the ZR, I think the S9, I think obviously the FP, the OG pocket camera, like, and for that matter, I think the BF is going to be a good used camera on the market. I think the ZR is going to be something that a lot of people are going to try to get their hands on to make some cool stuff with. That's where I don't necessarily think it's overhyped. I think it's doing something that no other camera's doing, or at least technically the FP was doing a lot of the same things. It's weird. So, like, if it's weird to see, like, a timeline of a single camera when it's it's such a weird concept. But a timeline from a single camera. So, like, follow my train of thought here. Let's say we tell a story about a single camera that over the course of time has just updated in specs. It's weird to see that from multiple manufacturers, right? So here's what I mean by that is this. I think the thing that started it all for the cinema camera aspect is the OG pocket camera. That first OG pocket camera. I think that it and we'll pull up the ZR again, just so my face is not on the screen the whole time. But I think that it offered that cinema camera raw shooting capability in a mirrorless body, pretty inexpensive for what you're getting. That was 1080p. I don't think it had, I can't remember if it had high frame rates at all. But that was kind of the start there. Okay, so we move on. I think the FP is technically the sequel to that. So you have Blackmagic, you have Sigma. The FP shoots RAW, Cinema DNG. Yes, we can say that, like, technically the 1080 is really the only thing that's usable in camera, whatever. But you know, if you use an SSD, you can shoot externally 4K Cinema DNG RAW. But there's limitations to that because as we progress, you have 6K, 8K, all those things. So you have Blackmagic, you have the FP, and then now you have the ZR. And I genuinely think that this, like, if you could make a story arc about a singular camera, I think these cameras are in that same story arc. And 3 different companies have told the story of this one camera. And it's fascinating to see it happen. It's almost like these companies see the appeal for these small cameras that have such a robust codec and have the ability to shoot raw and have this small form factor that eventually they'll get on board. And it just kind of has happened in that sequence where you have Blackmagic, which kind of started it with the OG, you have the FP, which kind of kept that lineage going, and then now you have the ZR, which is kind of the next phase. And I'm really excited what people will create with that. I've seen what people create with the OG pocket camera. I've of course seen what people create with the FP, and I'm really excited to see what people produce with the ZR. If I can just see less of it on my YouTube feed, I'd be happy. I feel like everyone is testing it, and I'm kind of getting FOMO, if I'm honest. Like, I'm like, I should probably be testing this, but I barely have time to test the things I have. And so I'll let somebody else do that, and I'll let somebody else take that audience. It's a great camera. It's a great camera. Princeton says the S1 camera of the year. S1R2 camera of the year. Ooh, we got a debate. I wish I could do polls. I saw somebody do polls the other day, and I'm like, I don't think StreamYard does polls. If you're just joining the stream, let us know. What is your I got it here. S1 camera of the year, S1R2 camera of the year. What's your camera of the year? All right, who's up for debating if the A7 IV is camera of the year? I think for some people it is. Maybe nobody watching the stream, but I think for some people it might be, because maybe you're an A7 IV owner and you're like, "It fixes the things I need it to fix." So, it's your camera of the year. Um, all that to be said, like, there's been some amazing cameras. So, we've talked about, a good amount of cameras, like, the Lumix cameras, the Sony cameras, the, Canon cameras, Nikon cameras. We talked about the BF for a little bit. What's another camera? We've got ooh, we haven't talked about the Eterna. Now, honestly, the Eterna has not been on my radar. The Eterna, when I found out it didn't shoot RAW, it quickly got off my radar. Let's bring up the Eterna. I know Josh Martin is a huge fan of the Eterna, and I like it for some things. I dislike it for some things. Mainly that price. Good lord. Am I actually displaying this? Yes. That price is crazy. But it's a medium format camera. I can maybe get on board with that. All right, so we've got large format. Oh, it does have variable ND. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. 14 stops of dynamic range. Internal ProRes 422, but still no ProRes RAW. It's just, I think, here's my thing. I think this camera is great for Fuji people that want. It's honestly kind of what us Lumix people want from Lumix. If you in my group of Lumix bros, as we call ourselves, we're very much a bro league here. But we want a Lumix box style camera. We want a Lumix Pixis, basically. Maybe with a couple of additional features like IBIS and things like that. I think if you're a Fujifilm shooter, if you're a Fujifilm filmmaker and you've been rigging up your mirrorless cameras this whole time, this is the camera that like may have your eye. But if you're coming from, and I think that's where the camera niche on YouTube gets weird, because we always talk about cameras like, oh, is it time to switch to this camera? Should I buy this camera? Should I own this camera? And you're like, and that's where I am with like the ZR. Like, I'm in the L mount. I have so many L mount lenses. Like, I have L mount adapters, all different L mount things. Why am I going to buy a camera that I have zero lenses for? Other than it's a really cool camera. I do agree. It's a really cool camera. But like, and I let me digress. Let me take the bass out of my tone there. I don't think it would be financially responsible for me to own a camera that I have zero lenses for and get into a whole nother ecosystem just because someone on YouTube says it's a dope camera. And it is a dope camera. But where I would get excited is if I'm a Nikon shooter or a Red shooter for that matter that has Z mount glass or has Cine glass. And that's why I would get excited. And I think that's where Blackmagic is exciting for L mount people, because we now have a camera that is a cinema camera that's in our ecosystem. And I think that's where the Eterna is for Fuji people. That's where the C50, the C70, Canon cinema cameras is for Canon people. And that is, okay, this is finally something in our ecosystem where we don't have to buy new glass. We can go and use what we have. We're already used to the workflow of Fuji. That's where this camera is appealing. But and having professional IO, having variable ND is really nice. Having all the mounting points, not having, I just said, I don't like Frankensteining anything anymore. I do have a cage for my Pixis, but that's just because I want a side handle, and I like the tilted cage. It's very nice. I need to look at the XLCS one. He sent it to me. I need to review that and put it out. But I do like the Tilta mainly because of the battery solution that it offers. But I think it's hard to swallow the price tag, if I'm honest. It's hard to swallow the price tag. I mean, speaking of which, who cares about finances? There's always a GoFundMe. Life is short. Wait, for the Mega Adapt L mount edition. Wait for the Mega Adapt L mount. Ooh, that would be dope. Fuji X-T3 is my Eterna Cine Mini. I do love the Fuji, the X-T3. That was a sleeper, one of my favorites. I never could grade it correctly. I cannot grade F-Log. Yeah, I can't grade F-Log. It's I always end up looking mushy and gross. Derek, what's up? After watching Cine Daly's video today, I'm actually a little bit more okay with the price tag of the Eterna. Okay, I need to go watch Josh Martin's video. Yeah, I think you just and I think that's where I love and hate the camera space on YouTube because we often look at these specs. Going back to the A7 IV, we look at specs in the spec sheet and judge the camera based off a spec sheet. But in reality, the A7 IV solves problems for A7 IV owners, and that's really what it's there for. Is it making people switch? Maybe not. But maybe this is the generation that Sony's not looking to people to switch. And I think that's kind of the same mentality with the Eterna. I think the Eterna is a problem solver that people it's yes, the B&H spec sheet is underwhelming for $17,000 other than large format sensor with variable ND maybe. I don't know. But and yeah, I need to go watch that video. Maybe we'll have a watch party. But yeah, I think that's where I'm waiting for this camera to make sense. It's kind of the same thing with I think two very different cameras. But like as an owner of the Sigma BF, I'm waiting for the camera to like something to happen for it to pop. And I'm like, this is why I own this camera. Derek says, it's still expensive. Still very expensive. And on paper, you say no way, but the image does kind of make me feel like the price tag is justified. The great image and a great image for a first cinema camera. The Ursa line. I feel like that's way above my pay grade. I feel like that's way above my pay grade. I do appreciate. We didn't talk about the Blackmagic 12K with the new RGBW sensor or something like that. I haven't looked at the 12K because I didn't want to look at the 12K because I was looking at the 6K. The 12K, 6K, I mean. Okay. So I do have the 6K with me. I didn't look at the 12K, and that's a release for this year is the 12K. I didn't look at the 12K because honestly, it's out of my price range. Didn't want to look at it. I did start to feel better too when I had some people actually get their hands on it and started seeing videos where there is overheating issues and there are people that are having issues with it freezing up. I like the technology that they're putting into it, the new sensor and everything. And I think there's gonna be some cool stuff made with it. I love. It's funny. I got my Pixis on Black Friday. Like honestly, you could not beat it. $2,300. Like, damn, that's a price, right? And I'll rebuttal for Derek. Like, I think the Pixis is the better first cinema camera. I don't think the Eterna would be, in my opinion. But the 6K, like, I've had it. I got it on Black Friday, and I've already shot 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 projects with it. Everybody decided to shoot the last part of December or like the middle part of December. A lot of our retainer clients decided this last 2 weeks was when we're going to shoot. And automatically love the image that comes from it. It gives me the feels, just kind of like what we're talking about, like where you have that image that's so rich. We're talking a little bit earlier. One reason I bought the camera is because I wanted a full frame raw filming camera. Because one of our retainer clients is a indoor sports bar or indoor golf sports bar. And so they have virtual golf, and there's just so much different lighting, temperatures, tints, everything, green lights, tungsten lights, daylights. And so having 12-bit raw, and honestly, I don't most of the time shoot anything above 12-to-1 ratio. But having 12-bit raw is was so much what I needed for that client. I used my S1R for the first couple shoots, or S1R2 for the first couple shoots I had for it. And yeah, the 10-bit 420, because I think I was shooting an open gate, the 10-bit 420 held up really well, and I was able to push and pull things around. But it's just the way that 12-bit, because you have access to more color information, the way that it holds on to all the colors is just really nice. And so having that full frame Blackmagic Raw, and not to mention Blackmagic Raw is really easy to work with, really simple to grade. This is my favorite camera at the time. And it's not necessarily quirky in the sense that, like, my favorite camera, maybe arguably of all time, is the FP, but like I'm not having to Frankenstein it. I'm not having to work with its quirkiness. Like it's a workhorse. It's doing what I need it to do right now. Other than autofocus, I really want the autofocus update, like from the Blackmagic Cinema camera, 6K, because once that's done, I don't know. I may have to sell this the my Cine lens. I'm not selling the 50. I'm not. I don't think I'm going to build up the set again. I think if anything, I may grab the 24 again. Maybe go the other route and do a telephoto, but maybe like 2 of the Cine set, not a freaking 4 lens Cine set, when at the time I was just shooting for hobby. Um, Jeff, what's up, man? So yeah, the 6K is kind of my go-to right now. It's been serving me really well in the couple of shoots that I've had it. So more to come about the 6K. So what my goal for 2026 is one, to make more videos. I'm kind of like getting used to full-time freelance and YouTube, which it's funny. I thought I was going to make more content as I go full-time and freelancing. But that was the opposite. So more videos, but also kind of running the spectrum on L mount, with the Blackmagic cameras, the Sigma cameras, and the Lumix cameras. And who knows, maybe a Leica camera will come in there every once in a while, if Leica is kind to me. But that said, Derek says all the cameras that are out now are kind of all around the same quality. It really comes down to the artist behind the camera, for sure. For sure. You got to have the eye. You got to have the eye. And just like, yeah. So there's a marginal difference in the image, but bigger difference in workflow. That's what it comes down to at this point: workflow and turnaround. And I really do think we need to start talking about the conversation again. What's up, Jeff? Start talking about the conversation of like, okay, every camera's really good right now, and every kind of like lens mount has really good cameras. I think it's time we entertain the conversation of like, cool, go into the lens mount that you like the lenses for, and let's talk about like what lenses you like, and that's what you base your camera choice off of. And maybe there's a little bit of give and take there, and I remember there was an old saying of like, marry, or I've said this entirely too many times, but like, date the body, marry the lens. And that's a lot of times true. That's one reason I went with the Pixis rather than maybe the Komodo, because one of my favorite lenses is the Sigma 50mm f1.2. That's an L mount lens, or if I were an E mount person, that's an E mount lens. But it's not on the RF system, and so that's where I probably could have taken the E mount and put it on this. We're not going into that one, but that's where I think we want to have the conversation, is like, let's entertain the idea of like, understand your ecosystem and like the workflow within your ecosystem, what cameras are available and things like that, and just kind of like hone in on that. And so uh it stresses me out how many different brands of cameras people own sometimes. So let me go back to this one. So I'm currently deciding if I should invest in a cinema camera, thinking about either Komodo X, Pixis 12K, or even maybe the FX6. However, I'm becoming closer with a camera rental house called Lemec. I'm up in the air about, excuse me, I'm very burpy right now. I'm not up in the air about buying compared to renting, considering I want to shoot all the time, shooting about 2 to 3 small scale C TVCs a year, music vids, passion projects as a young DP. What do you think? Um, I'm up in the air about it. I would say I think the easy answer is uh I love that. I would come back to that. Sorry, the easy answer is to find that camera that is kind of your staple. Um, those are all good choices. FX6, the Komodo X, or the Pixis 12K. I would say like find one that rent all of them, or maybe not all at the same time, but rent them, see what you think about them. And then what I personally would do is I would find one that just meets what I need the most. And then if I need the other ones for a certain project, like that's where the rental kind of comes in handy. And maybe it's not even those. Maybe it's not even the FX6 or the Komodo X or the Pixis 12K. Maybe it is okay, I know I have access to a rental house. Let's look at what this kind of I don't like saying step down, but like what's smaller in budget that I can buy and have so I can easily pick up for a passion project and go, if someone hires me for a passion project, I don't need to can think about how much it's going to cost for me to rent a body. I have a body at my access. Is it a 12K Pixis? No. Is it an FX6? No. Is it a Komodo X? No. But maybe it's a Komodo. Maybe it's an FX3. Maybe it's a Pixis 6K. And I think that's kind of where me personally would probably take that. It is let me look at that budget, that 20, yeah, I'd say like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 range. Let me buy into that. Let me have that um as my kind of concrete ownership body. And then if I need those other cameras for other projects, then that's where I would hit up rental house and work with them. But that being said, too, like I think the rule of thumb is if you end up renting so much that it makes more sense to buy, then that's also your answer. If you're using the Pixis 12K on every single project, and you may have access to the rental house and have some sort of partnership with them, and whatever the specifics about that may be, but if you're paying out of pocket for those rentals, I think that's another thing to look at is, are you renting the Pixis, or the Pixis 12K? Are you renting the Komodo X? Are you renting the FX6 so much to where financially it makes more sense just to buy it rather than renting it every time? I think those are the two ways I would approach that, is look at like something maybe a little bit on the lower budget that's kind of like your go-to ownership camera and rent the other ones, or if you've been renting those so often that it financially makes sense just to buy it. I think that's the two directions I would go. I hope that helped. Whoa, another Anson into camera equipment. What's up, Anson? Uh, that's so weird to say. I moved back to BM 6K full frame for YouTube. Dude, I'm jealous of the autofocus. I saw yours and Josh Satin, uh, you guys were doing the autofocus. I want that on the Pixel 6K. Like, I think it's only a matter of time. It's the same sensor, but I think I'm like, I want that so bad. Um, so I'm pretty pumped on that. Latest AF beta is great, dude. I'm excited. I'm excited. At this point, I keep the Komodo because it lost so much value that I still get a gig a year that need the red. I mean, honestly, like I could see that. I mean, that thing went down, like down in price so fast. Like after the initial price drop, like it's like just kept going to the point where I'm like, genuinely, am I getting a used Red Komodo or am I getting a used Pixis 6K? And to say that I could potentially buy a Komodo cheaper than a Pixis 6K is crazy. And to say that you have I mean, like that's one reason I got the Blackmagic, because some of our clients are intelligent enough to recognize name brands. And I'm not saying like Blackmagic is a name brand that is better than Lumix or things like that, but into certain audiences, Blackmagic is more recognizable than Lumix. And the same thing with Red, even more so with Red. Honestly, at this point, even more so Sony. But I digress. So to be able to own a Red camera, a solid Red camera for that amount of money is awesome. But again, if you're trying to sell it, not so awesome. But I rarely touch it now for sure. I need to talk to Joe Nicolo. I don't know if he got a Komodo X, but I know that he had a Komodo, and I'm like, do you still use your Komodo? Funny you say that. The amount of shoots I've been on where we are running an Alexa 35, there's also a Komodo as a B cam. Interesting. It's not something I say that is happening in every industry. This is just my personal thing as I'm doing less DP work as a content creator now. So the Komodo really doesn't fit into the fit that workflow. I'm terrible at reading today. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the hard part. I think that's where I talked myself out of a cinema camera this year for the first time, where I was like, I don't need one. I don't need one. And the only reason I picked up the Pixis is because I'm starting to do just more talking head stuff, more skin tone related talking head stuff, and obviously talking head skin tone. And I love 12-bit raw for skin tones. I love it. And I'm not doing as much like action or moving around or quick turnarounds. I mean, it's quick turnaround stuff, but relatively. Um, so it made sense to have, and it does look nice for some of the higher priced clients that maybe do care about what you shoot on, stuff like that. Again, Blackmagic is not the pinnacle of that, but it's a little bit step up from like a mirrorless brand. So maybe I should invest in 20 iPhone 18s and become the next Roger Deakins that way. Yes, absolutely, you should. Derek, I haven't seen Nicolo in a minute. I haven't seen Nicolo in a minute either. I have a weird tie to Nicolo. He hasn't been posting. I think he had like he texts me every once in a while. Because we're those kind of buds. We'll text every once in a while. Every once in a blue moon, we'll check in on each other. He texted me like a month ago and showed me a screenshot of him batch recording some videos, and I was like, "Oh yay, we're gonna get some Joe film or some Joe videos." And I don't think those ever came out. So, but no, Joe's been working slowly on a documentary that I'm excited about, and he actually is kind of long term borrowing / owning my Canon FD lenses for the project. So I have some sort of like not producer credits because I'm letting him borrow my Canon FDs. He probably owns them at this point. Let's be real. I'm using the Nikon ZR for any of my vids that I'm not shooting outside the studio, and everything is in R3D. LOL. Dude, I need to know less about this camera, because the more that people talk about it, the more I'm just like FOMO. Like I really want to try it. But again, and if you didn't, I think you joined a little bit later. I have PTSD from the Sigma FP and trying to get that camera to work as much as I did, that like I have to like let my soul heal before I can go after another quirky cinema camera. And so the ZR is out of question for me right now. But it is really interesting seeing what people are shooting with it, and it is exciting for what Nikon's able to do. Which I did notice today that, and maybe I just missed like an official announcement. The that they're actually Are they officially now like all the Red cinema cameras are a part of the Z Cinema line? I mean, maybe that's old news, but I saw a official Z Cinema Instagram account today. Well, actually, Z Cinema _ because I guess they didn't take it as the first whatever. And so it's really interesting to see that Nikon is kind of like stepping into saying like this is our line, which it is. I mean, they own the company, but interesting. Really quick, Neil, happy holidays, dude. Thank you for joining as always. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for commenting. I hope you have a blessed holiday, and can't wait to talk to you again in the new year or the next video I post if you watch it. Thanks, buddy. Love you. If you had to shoot a documentary based around sports, what two cameras would you use? Looking at interviews, shooting, and shooting the play. Honestly, that would probably be like an FX6, FX3 setup for me. I think for sports, the FX line is probably one of the better ones out there. And I only say that because Lumix doesn't have a cinema camera. I think if Lumix had a cinema camera, I would do a Lumix scenario there. I like the Sony ecosystem for that because of the autofocus. And so I wouldn't go Blackmagic or Red because the autofocus might be kind of handy for some of those shoots, especially if you're a solo operator. Yeah, I would say probably FX6, FX3. That'd be like my 2-second thought opinion on that. I like the Nikon ZR, but it's not the camera I was hoping it would be. Interesting. Do tell. I think you're about to, but do tell. I want to know more. We already did that one. FYI, I'm doing NAB this year. You thinking about going? Yes. Yes. You went last year. What didn't you go to last year that I went to? I think you went last year. Did you go last year? I don't think. Maybe now I look at it. I don't know if you did. No, you didn't. And I think that made me sad. I think I actually talked to you about it. And you gave me a reason. And it was a legit reason. Or maybe you didn't go to one of the parties. My memory is spotty. I had to book early. There were some crazy Black Friday deals on rooms. I just paid for, we're doing an Airbnb with a couple of the Lumix guys. I didn't do 20. Okay. I remember seeing you at In-N-Out, but that was a 2024. Definitely. Okay. Now this is all making sense. I remember talking to you and you gave me like why, and that made total sense. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll be there. We just booked our Airbnb, so we'll be there. I got to book flights, and that'll be fun. So yes, you need to come to the In-N-Out party again. Anson, what advice would you give for someone who wants to start a channel for 2026? Ooh, good question. Good question. Don't. No, I'm kidding. I think one would be YouTube is very saturated. Find something that is either really attractive and go after that. Case in point, my boy Jeff here, camera reviews for years, and grew, but when he started talking about like the Mac Mini, super appealing, has a niche audience, bigger niche audience than maybe camera niche audiences, but still kind of probably niche, probably get the most out of the Mac Mini. That's when his channel grew and grew exponentially. I'm super proud to see that growth. But I would say, and I actually have a couple of channels that I run as a part of my job because we have full service options. And I always tell them the biggest thing that advice I would tell people is find a niche that works for you. Find something you're passionate about, but also find something that's appealing, and go after that. But figure out what you contribute more than other people do. What do you have to offer that these 20 million other channels don't? Or maybe it's the same thing, but what can your spin look like? What can your personality on it look like? Set it apart. Don't be a carbon copy. I have a couple of the channels I run. I think that's where a danger we fall into. We see what works for other channels and we try to replicate that. And I think that's where you can only measure success only so far. So find something you're passionate about, find something that you love, find something you have, maybe a little bit of like a corner on, and then chase that. But also don't go into it not realizing that you may have to pivot. I think pivoting helps people a lot. So those are a couple of things I would say. Like find what you are willing to grind out. Like for me, um, and Jeff could probably speak to this too. I think for the first part of his YouTube channel is a little bit of a grind, and some things worked, some things didn't. But it's just grinding, and that's one thing I appreciate about Jeff's channel is he will, for a long time I was like, why are you making these videos? What This is a random video. Like, what is this? But then he found that thing that is like the thing, and it kind of set him on that trajectory. And it's just experimenting, you know. And I think that's where my I can speak from the side of this year has been the slowest year of my channel for growth. And it's because I've stayed safe this year. I've only done stuff where I feel like I'm going to get views on. I stopped getting other camera systems. I stopped, buying, stuff like the XT3 and things like that. And, putting risk and taking risk on content because my time was not plentiful. And so I had to go with things I knew was going to get views or find traction and things like that. But my audience has suffered for it. Like my subscriber count is the slowest it's been in the 7 years I've done the channel, other than the first like 2 where nobody subscribed. But you got to take risk, you got to experiment, and you got to figure out what works and chase the things that seem to work for you. Understand analytics, research analytics, be a student of the game. I know I gave you like 20 million different things, but those are the things I would say for new channels. Would you go FX6 and FX3 over 2 C80s? I don't know. Yes. Can't tell you why, but yes. I don't think I know enough about the C80. I think that was kind of lost on my radar. But yeah, I think just for one, you gotta also think about two, Sony is very established in the I'm out of focus. Let me get back in my focus plane. Wow, I'm super pink too. I really need to put a LUT on this footage. But I think Sony is a little bit more recognizable in the industry, and so I think you potentially, if people are looking at what you're shooting with, Sony is gonna get you movement versus Canon right now, I think. Plus the Xbox Dog Alley X. I don't think I saw that content. So that's done really well for you. That's pretty cool. Do you recommend Sigma FP over S5 2X or ZR for filmmaking now? I know its limitations, but confused, so want to know your advice. My stuff are narrative films, short films, etc. I think if I were starting today doing narrative, that's tough. I probably would go the ZR. Not because I don't love the FP, but because I think the ZR offers more resolution, a little bit more features, and Red Raw is a good workflow to be in, especially if you're trying to get used to raw workflows. Being able to get in Red Raw workflow may help you in the future. Cinema DNG is very nice to grade, but sometimes hard to work with. That would be, I would say, if you're trying to pick that like mirrorless small form factor body, it's really hard to say no to the ZR right now, unless you can find an FP for super cheap. But protect that USB-C port at all cost. I think that's a problem with camera filmmaking space. It's most channels are doing the same thing. That's why I started covering stuff outside of cameras, and I changed what I talk about. I talk about how to use gear and my experience and what I'm using it for. I only talk about specs a little bit And there are so many channels that do the technical specs and testing like that. Yeah, I think that is very hard. We right now we are very. I should probably just come back over here because we're not talking about the Eterna anymore. Um, yes, I think a lot of us are very much. I think in the camera space, either A, you need to take your approach where you're offering information that not many people are offering, or I look at channels like Zach Mayfield that's offering more entertainment based information. What's the phrase? There's a phrase for it. Oh God, I'm blinking. I think I would love if I had the time, and I think I'm gonna try to do this more in 2026. Kind of go back to the roots of this channel where, yeah, we talk about gear, but then every once in a while we'll make a little microfilm and put that out. I think that's one reason why I've seen a decline in growth on my channel, is because I've kind of just gone into that routine of let's get in and out with specs, some examples, things like that. And I think some people appreciate my brevity, so to speak, on my reviews. But there's a little bit of like, am I having fun? And am I offering something that no one else is offering? Because I don't think I am right now, other than my reviews are super short. And that may be good for people that have short attention spans. But that's the thing, man. You got to find something that's like different and something that like hear people on YouTube strategy all the time about finding your niche. And I think that's just like, it's something that we overlook a lot, but like, you've got to find something that you offer that not many people do, because at that point the audience will find you. It may take time, but they will. But the ZR has clutter menu of their hybrids and the SS and no SSD recording. So lots of CF Express, which means lots of money for sure. If FP comes with full rig accessories for 700 USD, is it worth it? Yes. I would say yes. Protect the USB-C port. Those do go bad. Mine is bad right now. And it is a technically discontinued camera. But I'd say if you get that package for 700, go for it. I think it's still, the image still is very appealing, and the features are still, especially if you're doing narrative, because it does 4K, but it doesn't do it at like high frame rates. But if you're doing narrative stuff, you don't necessarily need high frame rates. And if you don't care about 6K, I'd say yes for $700 for sure. And for $700, that's a damn good image. I think one thing that's a lot. I think one other thing is a lot of filmmaking channels are chasing money instead of love, for sure. Of why they started it, and chasing the money kind of killed the growth, for sure. I think that's hard. That's hard because, um, it's funny. I've always only made enough to like on YouTube to just like have beer money, kind of. That's what I call it. Um, when I make a video, I genuinely want to make a video. It's not even necessarily the love for the filmmaking. It's a love of the community. And this is I've talked about this with some of my Limix buddies, where like, why do we do this? We do this because we enjoy the community, and not necessarily the community of like, I get to see Jeff, or I get to see Caleb, or I get to see Dustin. But the community of like people that watch our stuff, because like I've talked to Neil a bunch of times. I've talked to Derek a bunch of times. And I get to, and that's why I also love about being a smaller channel too, is because I have the time to maybe reply to these people that I know, comment regularly and things like that. I love that community aspect. Do I get bogged down by the analytics? 100%. Like, it's the reason why it's hard for me to go outside the box right now, is because like I don't have a ton of time to make videos, but I want to make something. But I want to make something that I know is going to not make me depressed after posting because it got like 2 views. And I think that's where it's hard too, is like there's that mental aspect of YouTube where you're like, it's not even for me about the money necessarily. It's more about like, I hate when a video tanks. It's so defeating. And so like if I do YouTube for that community and that feeling of posting and being a part of that community, I want to make sure that I'm going to get that dopamine hit, so to speak. And if I have video tanks, I'm definitely not getting a dopamine hit. But we should make a documentary on mental health in YouTube. You can use a lot of cheap CF Express B cards with the ZR. I use a few cheap Lexar ones that I got for my Blackmagic for sure. Yeah, you can get some decent USB CF Express B. How is the image quality? How's the quality of Sigma FP's full HD 120 frames per second ProRes RAW quality? I don't do 120 that often, but I have done high frame rates with ProRes RAW, and it's actually really good. If you go check out my what video was it? I think it was the Atomos Ninja 5 supercharges your Sigma FP. I think that's the video I made, and I was filming like a B. Like it's not like groundbreaking experience footage, but I was filming a B. It was really sharp 1080p. I don't know if that was 120 or if that was 60. I don't go 120 that often. I rarely go 120. But you're gonna have really good 1080p on the Sigma FP for sure. ProRes RAW compare quality. I want to see a video of yours on ProRes RAW quality comparison with Cinema DNG from FP with all resolutions and frame rates. Whoo! Okay, that'll be my Sigma FP video for 2026. I think I made only like 2 Sigma FP videos this year. I have to rent an Atomos Ninja to do that. I think I don't think you're gonna see a ton of quality difference, if I'm honest. Cinema DNG is very robust. But I've used Blackmagic RAW, I've used ProRes RAW, and I've used Cinema DNG. And technically, I haven't used ProRes RAW in the sense that, like now, where it goes straight into DaVinci Resolve, I've always converted it to Cinema DNG, and so there's not been much of a difference. So I'd be curious now with Blackmagic doing ProRes RAW inside of DaVinci Resolve, if there would actually be a big difference there. So food for thought. I may have to remember that as weeks come. All right, it is 9:30, y'all. I was planning to stream for like an hour, but I always love hanging out with you guys. Again, this is why I do this channel most of the time. Is I like hanging out with you guys. I like talking with you guys, and so I appreciate everyone joining the conversation. Oh, there was one more. Hang on. I asked that question because you are the one that pops up if anyone searches for Sigma FP. Want to know if there's any color differences between ProRes RAW and Cinema DNG. I don't think you're color differences. You might see some color differences. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to rent an Atomos Ninja. Jeff, it was good seeing you, buddy. I'm super pumped for NAB now that you're gonna be there. We'll have to actually hang out outside of maybe the In-N-Out party. We'll definitely catch up. Maybe we can come by our Airbnb. Good to see you, buddy. All right. So this one, I have my assignment. Let me get my FP repaired. And do me a favor, maybe hit me up on Instagram. And just to put the bug in my ear, I'll get my FP repaired and maybe rent an Atomos Ninja and see what we come up with. So hit me up on Instagram, man. That'll get me get my I have terrible time remembering things. So, but I am up for this challenge of comparing. I don't know about all resolutions. That's a lot. No, it's not. We'll see. Okay, we'll do some comparisons. So hit me up. Let me know. But anyways, thank you guys all for joining. Let me know if you're watching this after the fact. What is your favorite camera of 2025? What camera are you looking forward to for 2026? Maybe that's the next stream. Maybe that's like our predictions for 2026. Maybe that's the thing. Who know? I may put out a video this week of the Pixel 6K and my like 5 reasons why I bought it. If you're interested in my kind of rationality around buying the Pixel 6K, look for that. Either that's coming out this week or maybe even next. Yeah, thank you guys all for joining. Let me get this one last comment here. So we've got waiting for those videos from FP. Thanks, Anson, for all the answers videos this year. Have a great year ahead. You too. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. As always, oh God, I went out of order. As always, thank you for joining. Go and find your journey. Go embrace life. Peace. Happy holidays. Stay safe. I really do hope you guys have a great time with friends, family, anybody that you love. For whatever holidays you celebrate, take time, hold everybody close that you are close to. Truly appreciate everyone and everyone that's joined, everyone that's a part of the community. And if I don't talk to you before 2026, have a great new year, great holiday. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys all. 18,000 of you that are subscribed to the channel, and also people that aren't subscribed to the channel. Thank everyone for just being a part of the community. Peace, guys.